So how did you find me? How did you find out about the program?
I was laying in bed, and I was going to go to Colorado that day, and I mean, I've been struggling for quite a while with the eating area, and I was going to be staying at a friend's house, and I was trying to figure out how can I hide the fact that I'm struggling with food issues.
Yeah.
And I Googled struggling with food and like hiding and things, just like those key words. And you're not going to believe this, but yours was the one that came up at the top.
Really?
And I'm like, Michelle. And I'm like, Michelle. And I'm like, that can't be Michelle. So I clicked on it, and I'm like, that's Michelle. And so now I'm sitting up in bed. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, I totally did all of key 1 between 3 and 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
And I did the surveys all at that time. And I said to myself, I contemplated, purchasing it at that point, and I said, I don't even know how to purchase internationally. And so then I said, all right, maybe I'm hyper-focusing on this. Maybe I'm just, like, being weird. Let me just close this, get on the airplane, and I'll figure it out. And so I closed it, got on the airplane, went to Colorado, and stayed at my friend's house, and she's like, I'm going to make whatever. And I'm like, no. And, I mean, I spent more time, like, at food. I just said, let's just go to the grocery store, and I'll purchase my own food. I feel better about that. And that's literally how I found you. And,
wow.
And then when I came home, then that's when I emailed and just said, hey, this is me, going on. And then I did, I got the purchase direct, called the bank, and figured out how to make a purchase internationally.
Oh, I'm sorry if it was hard. It should have been pretty simple, I would have thought. But that is absolutely amazing
It was the questions in my mind as to how to do it. It wasn't
okay.
It wasn't hard. It was the questions in my mind. I just wasn't sure how to do it.
Sure.
And then when at 3 o'clock in the morning I saw it, and I'm like, wait a minute, I do remember somebody saying back that you had gone through anorexia, and I was like, well, then this makes sense. But I hadn't any intention of hunting somebody down. I was literally just I just put in these, and it was you, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Do you know what?
I was thrilled to death because I knew also that I could trust the information that you were going to be giving out. I knew totally that I could trust it.
Wow.
And that made me feel confident in the information.
Wow. That is incredible. That actually is, wow, that really warms my heart to hear that, number one. And do you mind if I just ask you, so when did you start the program? Would it be 2 months ago, do you think? In August is when I went to Colorado. Yeah.
So it was in the middle of August because school ended at the beginning of August, and then I went to Colorado and I came back. And then when I came back is when I purchased it, and when I actually seriously went through the program.
Yeah. Wow. And so you finished it how long ago? So you probably started maybe September, do you think? I mean, I know I would have this information somewhere. It's just
probably September. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably like the end of August, beginning of September.
Yeah, because I know that recently you finished and you did the pre and post program questionnaires, which I so appreciate. Now I haven't seen those, but you were telling me that you could see some difference. I could see from what you sent me that you'd made some real changes, and I've seen that with other people, and lovely to see, isn't it? Because you can actually see,
It's
oh,
right
there you go.
here.
It's right there. Oh, my gosh. I might, look, you know what I might do? I might, when I edit this, I might just, look, I know you made some significant changes on the depression and anxiety scale, the self-esteem scale, the eating attitudes test, and then we've got this EDEQ, which is quite a tricky one to score, so I don't blame you for struggling with that. In fact, what I'll do, it's so hard, isn't it? But it's actually got some great information because it actually breaks down a person's concerns into 4 categories, and they are restraint, shape concerns, weight concerns, eating concerns. So it really helps you see changes in those 4 areas. And so I will have a look at I'd love to have a look at your scores for that and actually give you a readout on that, because it would be lovely to see. What I find is you really see objectively the changes that you've experienced, and you can also see where maybe there's still some work to do. So it's a lovely objective readout. But let's move from that, just at me, if you don't mind me just asking, if you could take a moment to think back to your relationship with eating, yourself and your body, if you can take yourself back to how it was before you found the program and how it is now that you've completed it, and we're only talking about a couple of months, 2 months here. What's different? How would you compare your relationship with self, body and food then compared to now?
Well, with food, in some ways, I'm still kind of restricted.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not eating dairy. I'm not eating anything with fat in it. If like on a package or something, it says fat on it, I'm terrified of it.
Right.
But for a while there, for probably about a good year or something before, I'll backstep a little bit. In the classroom, I have to walk around with a food box.
Yeah.
And for like a correct answer or certain behavior with the kids, I have to give them whatever it is that they like. If it's a chocolate chip, chips or something, whatever it is that they like, you give them one of those on a very frequent basis to teach them that if they behave a certain way or perform a certain way, they get what they want.
Yeah, and just to clarify in case someone's listening, that you're working with kids with
severe
autism.
disabilities.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
but having that around in the room, in the classroom, and constantly touching it was sending triggers through my brain, like if the kids were, not in the room or something, I would pick at something, like if I was feeling stressed, I would pick at something, chew it up, and spit it out. I would just, I couldn't swallow it. I just, really would go into these binges where, I was like a maniac on food, just eat, binge, throw it out, spit it out, eat more, spit it out, and it would just be like this cycle until I guess there was some sort of mental relief or something that would say, okay, you're okay. And that was what that was all through probably for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Then
such a hard experience, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Then during the program, I think one of the most helpful things was at the beginning you said, I'm not asking you to change anything right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, thank God, because I don't think I can.
Yes, exactly.
And but now for this week only, I've only done that 3 times.
Yeah.
Which that was something that I was doing probably 5 or 6 times a day.
Wow. And so you've gone from doing 5 to 6 times a day to maybe 2 or 3 times a week.
Well, and even before, when I did this questionnaire, it was Sunday, And at that point, I would say it would have been once a week. But this week has been particularly stressful, and I'm at three times this week.
Do you know, I'm really kind of glad you've raised that, because, you know, what we know is these ways of coping, and you've just related it to stress. What we know is these ways of coping, you know, we build these behaviours and these patterns and these ways of being and coping over a long period, and so it's really understandable that they're not going to shift overnight. And to be honest, to have that kind of change in such a short period is wonderful, but it's really important also to, you know, and I do say that in the beginning of the program, I wouldn't expect full recovery, depending on what you've been struggling with and for how long, in 8 weeks. That would be kind of crazy, wouldn't it? We'd solve the eating disorder problem. But what I'm hearing is, and anyway, I guess the point is, yeah, it's not unusual to find that when we hit periods of real challenge, these ways of coping, we might just find ourselves moving down that direction. But we often, anyway, so I'll just leave it at that. I just want to flag that in case someone's listening, because, yeah, we do think about eating issues as a way of dealing with challenge in our sense of self and our environment, so how we are coping. And so, of course, we're going to get triggered in, you know, the world goes on, doesn't it? And the challenges go on, and our ways of coping are changing, but they're in process. So I didn't mean to flick you right out of that, but that's an amazing change in your eating behaviour. Can I ask you about your attitude towards, or your relationship with your body and yourself? And you don't have to go into, you know, like only what you feel comfortable sharing. Has that changed at all?
To be honest, like, I haven't had any weight change or anything, but that I wasn't looking to change.
No, that's right. I remember you saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't looking for anything to change there. And
what were you looking for, if I may ask?
I honestly, as far as body, like, I'm at a healthy weight.
Yeah.
Healthy BMI. Like, overall, I don't think I really ever struggled with serious body image issues. So that's not something, maybe like a while back, but not really. It's not really been a part of me.
So it was much more the relationship with food and the way of coping with stress and other sort of emotional stuff. Yeah. Wow, fantastic. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, and at one point, like, I know when I was living in the Bronx, several doctors and people brought up that I was extremely thin, and even somebody, when we went bra shopping, even made a comment to me. They said, "You could wear a training bra," and I was kind of proud of it at the time. But it wasn't. It was. I never actually recognized that there was a problem at that time. I poo-pooed everybody. Yeah. Yes. I even went to see a counselor, and I didn't like the smell of the place, so I never went back.
Yeah, right.
And so, and she was like, "You're really thin," but at the time I just was like, "Yeah, well, that's just how it is," and I went on with my life. And then at that time I wasn't at a healthy weight. Now I am.
Yes.
So, but we're going back 20-something years for that.
Sure. So you really, what kind of drew you was you were going away. You were going to have to eat with a friend, and that anxiety around that is what kind of sounds like that's what really got you going. I need some help with this.
Yeah, well, eating in a restaurant, because I knew that we would be eating in a restaurant. We were going to be in ski resorts, and then eating at her home. Yeah. And just not being able to be in charge of what I was eating, I knew I couldn't handle it.
Yeah. It's such I really appreciate you sharing this, because, there could be just someone listening to our conversation and they may resonate with your experience, and, it's just nice to know that they can also access same as you did, for free, the first key, and just see if it does resonate, if it does speak to their experience, and then if they want to, they can check it out a bit further, and if they don't, hey, you've really lost nothing in the process. But so you've made that change, and you've made that change in a very short amount of time, and I guess I'm just curious to know, how do you think that's come about? How do you think that change has come about, the change that you've just described?
I think because they actually wanted it.
Yes.
And part of it is because, as part of our routine, because of the COVID right now, my parents are coming over once a week for meals, or I'm going over there once a week. So it's every other week we're at each other's house. And when they're here, I'm cooking and I'm in charge of the food, and I feel confident. When I go over there, my mom cooks with oil, and she uses more, breads or something, and it's scaring me, but I don't want to appear out of control in front of my parents.
Yes. Yes.
And so that has been, I think that has made, for a while there, I was able to hide everything.
Yes.
If I even recognized it. But it got harder and harder to hide.
Yes.
And so I realized I needed to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made it so that I actually paid more attention to anything.
Yes.
And and could actually put some change into effect.
Yes.
Plus also being at home and not being within the school itself.
Yes.
For part of it, not for all of it, but for part of it. I didn't have those triggers, and I could just focus on some of the emotion bits, and not actually have to be putting myself back into that with the food items right around me.
Yes, isn't that great? You actually were able to have a little bit of a break from that very triggering environment, and it enabled you to, sounds like it enabled you to do some of the work to get, a little bit more in your tank so that you could deal with it a little bit differently when you did have to re-engage it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love what you said
but
before
then
about...
also wearing a mask and a face shield while working with the kids, you can't actually do anything wrong anyway. Did I lose you?
Ronnie, okay, so we just froze then. So you were just talking about... Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
We were just talking about wearing a mask because we're talking smack bang center, COVID, USA, hello, it doesn't get much tougher from that. Working with kids with autism, highly, it's really, okay. So you were going to say something. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, but you can't actually, with the mask on and the face shield and the gloves, nothing's attractive to put it in your mouth at that point. You can't,
Right,
so,
right. Yeah, you've got a physical barrier, haven't you? Oh,
yes.
Wow, what a unique situation you had. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I can ask you too, because you were saying one of the things that really helped you, and it's worth just highlighting that too, is you really, the fact that I wasn't asking you to change before you were ready to start to consider that was helpful. And do you want to say more about what in the program you found helpful? Like, what helped you? What was helpful? So that was helpful.
That was helpful. Hold on, I actually printed these out. Here.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. I can see that.
I printed those out, and every morning I say one page of it.
Wow.
And for those who are listening, it's the key truths to feed your heart.
Yes.
And so every morning I'm saying one page of it in the
Wow.
kitchen while cooking my breakfast. And I think also was another time was when you said something like, and I don't remember exactly how you said it, but it was like, you deserve to eat, or you are worth eating, you're worth,
Yes.
And those statements were statements that honestly I haven't heard since I saw you guys back
All
in
that
New York.
time ago. Yeah, so just for our listeners, I met this beautiful lady 20 years ago. And
20 plus, I think.
20 plus. Yeah, actually, you're right. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And and we were over there, and I was involved in, just some Christian ministry. And so what you're referring to there is those key truths that feed our soul about our worth and value. And I can see you tearing up there with that. And I just really want to acknowledge that. And I want to just affirm that. And I also want to say that, I believe, and you've heard me say this a lot of times in the program and any of my work, but I really do believe that is the key to this journey into freedom, is to start to understand, not just in our head, but to really get an experiential understanding of our worth and value. That enables us to then start to act in ways that are healthy and life-affirming and health-promoting and kind and nurturing. And I'm so glad that that was helpful. I'm so glad. Yeah.
Yeah. See, here's the other one.
The helpful reframes. Yeah. Now that's really practical kind of cognitive reframing stuff, isn't it? Helpful reframes. When that critic is going ballistic and beating us up, the eating disorder or the bully in our head, you're talking about those. Yeah, I think you're right. I think we need some truth and some armor that can kind of we can fight the bully with. We can use those statements when but it's more than just statements. It's actually coming out of a true experiential place as well.
Yeah,
sorry, Jeanne.
There's been a couple of times where I've wanted to just not eat for like the entire day or something, and as a punishment for something, and like you start off the day and you're like, okay, you have this game plan in mind. I'm not going to eat. Like I did something wrong yesterday. I'm not going to eat today. And when you're halfway through the day, some of your willpower disappears.
Yes, absolutely.
But then that's when like some of the statements, those reframes have popped in my head of like, it's okay to eat, you deserve it. It's not, this is normal, everybody needs to eat,
Yes.
And that you're not, and I'll even tell myself, I'm no exception to this. I'm normal. Everybody, like, if I'm feeding the kids at school, I should be feeding myself as well.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful. Yeah.
So, so I printed that one out as well, because that was one that, like, sometimes on the food journal bit, on days I was struggling, I would read it out, at the moments when I'm writing stuff down, I would read it back to myself.
Yeah.
So,
oh, that's really powerful. That's really powerful. So having that stuff to come back to kind of the lies or the critic or the bully in their head that's saying you don't deserve, you shouldn't eat, you should, punish yourself or whatever. Having something to come back that you could believe in and kind of almost use like a bit of a dagger and say, shut up, shut up. I do deserve to eat.
Yeah, and then having that and having some of the Bible truths and stuff, because both of them, one wasn't better than the other. I think they just went nicely hand in hand.
I love that too, what you're saying there. And, because I do believe we need, that one of the key things that really helps us really not just get functional, but get free, start to move into healing and wholeness, is this revelation, for want of a better word, an experience of ourselves as worthy and deserving of life, of nurture, of good things. Because somewhere in our experience we've bought into this lie that we don't deserve, that we're not worthy, that, as we start to go down that food restriction path, it actually builds, the lie gets stronger, the fear that drives us gets stronger, that fear that makes us, and that bully that makes us feel like we deserve to be punished, it actually moves to a level that I believe there is a spiritual dimension there. And, I approach this problem from a whole person perspective, because that's my training as a physio, as a counsellor, as someone who's worked in ministry as well, is to look at the whole person. So it is about regular eating. It's about looking at the eating. It's looking at our physiology, but it's also looking at what we're saying to ourselves and the emotional experience. And then for those who are open to it, I'm just thinking, Jane, some of our our listeners won't know this, but the fourth component, so there's 4 keys, and the fourth component of each key is a spiritual component. It has a spiritual element which people can take or leave. They can try and, morph it into their own grid. They don't have to see things the way I see them, but I offer it, and I offer it from my perspective as a Christian. And I offer it from that perspective of someone who's actually in that Christian experience, has actually, my early days were completely, I was really bound by fear and guilt and shame, and some of that had a religious thing for me. And my journey into freedom came with a whole different experience of God and how He saw me and my worth and value. And so just for those who are listening, I suppose, just to let them know what my friend here is saying is she's talking about both the Bible truths about our worth and value, but also having those cognitive reframes that are just, they're true. It's like, I do deserve to eat. That's a truth. That's a complete truth. I can't think. What are some of the other reframes you've got there that are part of that? Only because I'm not looking at it right at the moment.
Let's see. Oh, that's not it. It's not the end of the world. I don't have to blow it out of proportion. It won't always be like this. And then that was generalization. I'm not a failure. I'm not hopeless. I'm hopeful. I am allowed to eat. I want to be free. And that I kept telling myself, that one specifically.
Yeah, I want to be free. I'm allowed to eat. I want to be free. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I think another one that I hear from people a lot that really helps them is, I deserve to eat. That sense of feeding our worth, feeding our deservedness, and we deserve to eat. We're worthy of food and nurture and, life and good things. And if we've had a certain experience that has sort of stripped our belief in that, it can take some time, and these are some tools that can help to get that back. So...
yeah.
Anything else that you found? I'm really appreciative for you sharing like this. It's just so beautiful, and
I liked your 6 figures.
Yeah, my drawings. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, because and the diet binge cycle. I like that one, but I like the 6 figures with the little heart in the center and everything. And I tried to draw. Not as well as you.
Oh, that's beautiful. No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And so, there's no art in the stick figures, but it's a great representation, isn't it? It's just a representation.
Yeah, and I just tried to do that. Like, you said, what does Freedom Land look like? And you gave some examples, and I'm like sitting there like, shoot, I have no idea what Freedom Land is going to look like. But then over like a week's time, you had given some suggestions, but over a week's time, I literally sat down and several times and then wrote in and came back to it and come back to it, you know, and mulled it over, chewed it over some, and then just added my own bits to mine as well.
I love hearing that, because I love that. And so what I've just heard you say is that initially you had no idea what freedom might look like. And what we say in the program is, you know, it's one thing to want to get free of Bondageville, but we kind of need to have a vision of where we're going, because it will. Well, how did it help you to have that? Rather me say, how did it help you to have that in front of you, to see that?
It actually drove home to me that there is a way, that there is an end to this, and that there is a way that, like, you can view the future. And before that, I never looked for a future.
Wow.
So future just didn't exist. And you know, like, one of the things I just didn't do things for myself.
Yes.
Like, I did things because people expected it, or people, or I thought that they expected it, or it was just a good thing to do at the time, but it was never for myself. And, and like, when under the hobbies, you said what recreation you're interested in, and when I was in Colorado, I was hiking, and I really enjoy hiking. I love hiking, and then each night when I was there, I'd end it with swimming. And
wow, how lovely!
COVID, and during COVID here, the pool that I went to here was closed the whole time, but in Colorado it was open. That's the weirdness of our country, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
But so then the pool across the street from me still is closed, but just on Halloween I went, and I was driving down the street, and I said, you know what? I like swimming. Let me join the pool. So I just went to the Y, and I joined the pool right then and there. They said, do you want to see the rest of the gym? I said, no, I am not interested in anything else here. Don't show me nothing. I just want to see the pool.
How awesome. I love it.
But that, I think, was part of, like, freedom, because I did it because I wanted it.
Yeah, I hear that.
And not because it was a way to burn off calories, a way to punish or do anything. Like, I tried running, and just like you, I've got a bad back. I can't run.
Yeah.
It hurts too much, but I tried it because I heard it's a good way to burn off calories. I was trying it, hurting myself, causing pain.
Yes.
And I said, you know what? Let me go to the pool. I like the pool.
Yes.
So I've been going 3 days a week. And only once have I
enjoy
used it as a punishment. Only once have I used it as a punishment. Every other time has been enjoyment.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. Giving yourself permission to do something for you that you enjoy. And isn't it true that the more you do, you start to, it's like we can either cycle down into more self-criticism and punishment and bondage, or we can start to cycle up into more and more freedom. And as we take those steps, like, okay, you've just had a whiff of something you enjoy in Colorado and went, okay, and then you do it, and you do a bit more. It starts to actually feed your worthiness. Have you noticed that? Like, it actually feeds
I think I might be beginning to notice that some.
Yeah. Look, we are early days. I mean, you've made some amazing changes in a very short time, and you know, I'm beyond delighted. And I think we'll you know, is there any, like, you know, I was going to say, would you anything else you want to say before we actually move into, because, you know, as you might have heard in the conversation, we did meet each other 20 plus years ago, and so we just want to catch up now. But it's amazing that I saw this name come into my inbox, and I went, oh my gosh, is this beautiful person? And sure enough, I'm just so absolutely delighted that you connected, that you found me, that we reconnected, and that this has been helpful. Is there anything you would like to say? If anyone's out there who might be sitting, I don't know, look, I don't even, you know, I'm not about spruiking, I don't like that, but what I do know, because I work in this space in Australia, and I hear a lot of stories, and I hear a lot of distress, and I know there are long wait lists for psychologists and people seeing treatment, and what I've noticed, and I really do believe it's by the grace of God, what I've noticed is people are having some really significant changes. They're moving out of Bondageville, and they're starting to move towards that freedom land. And we know it's a journey, but they really start to have some significant changes. And so I just think it's really worth letting others out there know, and I'm really delighted that you've been willing to share that, your personal experience, because, you know, there could be someone sitting out there today who's, again, just going, oh, I just don't know what to do. Well, I can let them know that they can sample this for free, the first key for free. That's quite a big sample. Easy. But is there anything you would like to, any final thoughts or words that you want to say?
I would say is, if you think that you're struggling in food, whether it's anorexia, whether it's binging or purging or whatever it is, do something as early as possible. Don't wait.
Yes.
Don't. The longer you wait, the more of a fight it is in your head.
That's wonderful advice.
And if you're thinking you have a problem, just treat yourself as if you do have a problem, and let it sort itself out. And before it becomes a bigger problem. Yes.
That is gold. Beautiful. That's such true advice. I'm going to leave it there. There's nothing more to say. That's a really good piece of wisdom. And so I'm just going to leave it there, and we're going to keep talking, but we're going to shut this down. So